Are you struggling to find the kind of debt repayment plan that works for you? If so, you're not alone, as so many people around the world are facing the same kind of issues. Debt is becoming increasingly common, and if you have any sort of debt, it is pretty important that you take the issue seriously and take it head on. Debt isn't something that you should feel alone about, and it definitely isn't something you should be embarrassed about either. That's why today, we're going to help show you how to create the kind of debt repayment plan that works for you, so that you can take full control of your life again. We are going to save some of our best pieces of advice for the end though, so make sure you stick around for the whole video. Number 1. Attack the most expensive debt first. There are a lot of different strategies to attack debt, and this aspect of things is probably the most complex aspect of things. Because of that, there are a lot of strategies that people employ to attack their debt and chip into that boulder. The best kind of debt repayment plan is the kind that works for you, and also the one that least feels like work to keep doing. Whichever you choose though, we recommend that you try to attack the most crippling kind of debt first. This strategy is pretty sound, and we'll tell you why. When you pay off your mortgage because it is the biggest payment, but miss paying off a credit card debt that is maybe at a much higher interest, you cost yourself money. This may not seem like the case, but interest rate is so important when it comes to debt, and it can be a pivotal component in terms of interest. Start your debt repayment plan on the right foot by not just using brawn, but also brains to take out debt fast. Number 2. Stop spending money on credit cards if that's an issue. If credit card debt is what's bothering you, or you notice that it has started to accumulate, something that you may want to do is take them out of your life completely. Removing them from your purse or wallet is a really easy way to do this. And don't worry, it's not like it's going to cost you anything to do. Using cash is a decades-old strategy to better track your spending anyways, and so you may even get lucky and spot some spending habits that are costing you too much money along the way too. Credit card spending can also be tricky, and many people fall into debt because they just don't know how their limits and rates really work in the first place. And spending as much as you can off of the card limits the chance that this happens to you. Number 3. Change any habits that led to this. A debt repayment plan honestly doesn't mean all that much if you aren't taking care of what got you into this position in the first place. Even if it's a kind of debt you mostly inherit, like student loans, you still should take a look in the mirror to make sure that you aren't becoming your own worst enemy. Good spending and saving habits are going to make the path out of debt as easy as it's ever going to be. And without them, you're going to have a much harder time really repaying your debts. If you accumulated debt based on habits, you should try and form better relationships with money before you try to do things like create a budget or anything like that. A good repayment plan requires a lot of faith and discipline, 2 things that you're going to have in order to make any of this work. Number 4, don't think you can get it all back at once. We mean this in the best way possible, but it's best to take the long view approach when you view your financial situation. Debt can be a tricky thing to deal with, and an even trickier thing to stomach when it gets in the way of your plans. Because of this, it can be really easy to try and find shortcuts, but most of these are going to end up being more of a headache than anything. Just like losing weight or studying for a test, you can't do it all at once, and it requires an appropriate amount of time and effort in order to see any sort of result. Even for people that are great at attacking and shrinking down their debt, they still have stretches of time that they wished would have gone better than it did. Taking a long view approach helps you deal with the ebbs and flows that come with dealing with debt. Number 5. Look for other money-making pursuits. We'll get to that in a second. I have a favor to ask of you. If you like this video so far, please subscribe to the channel. Have you ever thought about a side hustle? It's an absolutely great way to start paying back debt, and it can be pretty rewarding too. The best kinds of side hustles come from people who are just looking for ways to express a talent or skill that is rarely used in their regular job. Side hustles can make a lot of money, but there are also other ways to make a buck or two. Adding another job to your belt is another way if you have the time and energy, or investing is another. Really, there are a lot of ways to make money in a post-internet marketplace, and as long as you are a little tech savvy, you should be able to find something to make money on. If the internet isn't really how you like to conduct business though, there's always the local sector, and networking between different community groups to gain knowledge that way. Number 6. Make a list of all your debts and rank them. One of the most essential steps in debt repayment is knowing the big players from the small fish. We understand that all debt is serious, but if you have multiple sources of debt, it becomes a lot about balance and understanding of the situation. When it comes to debt, what you have is what you have for the most part, and so it's really roll up the arm sleeve sort of time. Making a list of debt and ranking of importance is one of the best strategies out there in terms of establishing a baseline. So many people gain debt and go about attacking it, which is a really good attitude to have, but you also need to have a little bit of finesse as well. Like we said earlier in the video, you should be going after your most important debt anyways, and then going from there. If you don't feel like you have the greatest understanding of your actual debt situation, rip the band-aid off and find out. Knowing is always better than not, even if it can seem easier to be ignorant. That usually comes with some rude awakenings down the line, and so do yourself the favor and just take a look at it now. Number 7, hold yourself accountable even when you're doing well. When it comes to good habits, things always go well until they don't. In terms of doing stuff we don't like and holding ourselves to routines, a lot of us can struggle to do it consistently, and that's completely fine. A good way to do it with finances, though, is to celebrate your milestones and reward yourself when you feel like you deserve it. Debt repayment plans usually last a relatively long time and usually force you to take your budgeting pretty seriously. Because of this, it's 100% natural that you may experience growing pains as well as moments where you maybe don't feel as good about your progress. When you face these moments, remember why you're doing this in the first place and think about how much better things are going to be when your debt is finally off your plate. Number 8, strive to pay more than the minimum balance. Milestones are really important when it comes to these plans, and it's important to not when you are making your own that where you start shouldn't be treated like where you're finished. What we mean by this is that your expectations should gradually shift as you pass more and more milestones, and depending on how well you are enjoying the experience. Eventually, however, you should strive to pay off more than just the minimum balance when you are attacking your primary sources of debt. Paying off your minimum balance is an absolutely great step, but in all honesty, depending on your specific situation, it may not pay off your debt in an efficient way. Now, paying off more than the minimum is usually the most efficient way to go about debt relief, but that may not be realistic depending on your budget or income, but nonetheless, this is an absolutely great goal to have. Debt is something that is easier to pay off when you do it quickly, and so trying to snuff it out faster than what your lender recommends is almost always the right choice, and in an ideal world, the one you would choose. Number 9, don't let anything go to chance. When it comes to debt, it's very important that you are on top of things, and so when you are making your debt repayment plan, it's important that all of your information and your overall course is correct. If you are missing payments or not hitting deadlines, you could be doing your credit score and debt situation a lot of harm. Make sure that you are really staying on top of your debt and that everything you rely on, from apps to reminders, is up to date and operational. Debt isn't something you want to leave up to fate, and it's definitely not something that you really get a second chance on. There are many things that people and organizations will have leeway on if things are late or short. Debt is not one of them. Number 10. Don't start taking risks before your debt is paid. Even when it comes to investments or saving, you may want to hold off on all that before your debt is paid. Interest is a real killer, and you want to have as good of an idea of what the rate is before you even start to think of planning for future events or big trips or big trip. If you want to get over debt in a real hurry, you should play your cards pretty close to the chest as long as debt is following you around. Did you overcome debt? What do you recommend to help others? If you are comfortable, please share your story down in the comments. If you liked the video, and we really hope you did, please like, and if you haven't, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one.